Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Hello, everyone. Today we are going to be talking with online fitness and mindset coach who works with bikini and lifestyle clients with her slogan, change your mindset, change your life. She is also the co-owner of Drizzle Cookie Company. She has been competing for 4 years and went pro in 2017 at her second national show. Welcome to this podcast, Morgan Lindsey. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Like I said, I'm just super happy you're here. And I know so many of our listeners have been anxiously awaiting you making an appearance. So we've got a lot to cover today, that's for sure. And before I get into all those questions from not only the listeners, but from myself, I would love to know what is something you do or a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage.
Well, first off, I'm so happy that we were finally able to do this. So super excited to finally get to chat with you. But something that I do right before I hit stage, so kind of the whole reason why I created my slogan, change your mindset, change your life, which I'm sure we'll get into this later, is just my history with anxiety. And so I am probably a little bit different than some other bikini competitors. I actually get extremely nervous when I'm about to step on stage. It's something that I haven't really overcame, but something that I do is I really just try to be present in the moment. I also pray. There's actually a video of me right before I earned my pro card in 2017, praying before I went on stage. So I really have a moment with God right before I go on stage. And then I kind of just, every show, I kind of focus on one thing that I want to improve on, whether that's stage presence, just my mindset going into the competition that day. I really just try to be as present as I can and pray. Like, those are my top two things that I do, because I can be really nervous before shows. And if I don't have my mindset in a great place, then it's kind of a disaster from there. So that's kind of what I do right before I step on stage.
Have you ever had that moment, like before going on stage, where the nerves just overcame you?
Yes, I definitely have. And I can go back and watch videos where I definitely realized, hey, that definitely wasn't my best. So that's, as my last season, I really tried to just focus on one particular thing in my routine. Like, I kind of go over that right before I step on stage. And that kind of helps me stay focused instead of just thinking about how nervous I am. But what's so weird is, like, right before I step on stage, like, once I step out there, I'm totally fine.
Yeah.
So usually once I get out there, it's like, that's why I love it so much. So I think it's more so excitement, adrenaline, all of those things, what keeps me coming back. Because if I was too scared to do it, then I would never do it again. But for some reason, I do still. It's like a feeling that I haven't really gotten used to, but I love it at the same time.
Oh yeah, I'm smiling because it's so relatable. Like, I totally
Yeah.
get that feeling of, like, you're backstage, it's the anticipation, it's the build up, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're on stage and you're just doing your thing and it feels good, and it's just like you're smiling, the lights are warm, the judges are there, you can see them, and maybe you can see right before you go out, like, people in the crowd that you know, and it's just awesome.
Yeah, I know. One of my shows this season, I remember I was nervous, and the expediter, he's just like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm okay. I'm just nervous." And he's like, "It's gonna be all right." But it's just funny sometimes because we get so in our heads and we don't even really realize what's going on around us. But then once you step out there, it's just kind of like your time to shine. So it's definitely a cool feeling.
Yes, gotta love those expediters backstage.
I know.
So I know, like I said, there is a lot I want to talk to you about. so much of it is relatable for myself and the listeners. And I know you're really passionate about helping others shift their mindset, which is something I value a lot too. And I can't wait to get into that with you, along with some insight into Drizzle Cookie Company, because we got a lot of cookie lovers who listen.
Yes.
But first, I want to talk about how you left your corporate job to start your own business, which meant moving back home and waitressing. So what was your job before starting your own business? Let's start there.
So I graduated with a degree in marketing, and then right after I graduated, I got into an IT recruiting job. So primarily it was sales, and I did that for 8 years. I moved around the country. I'm from Florida, Tampa, Florida, but then I moved out to Vegas and worked for Wyndham out there. And I did IT technical recruiting basically for 8 years. But even before I graduated school, I did have YouTube videos, and I played sports growing up, and I was working out in the gym, but not obviously to the level I am now. But I always just had this itch in the back of my mind, like I should be doing something fitness related. I had a job at LA Fitness. I did personal training, but that wasn't the right outlet for me as far as what I wanted to do within fitness. So I just got fed up one day, and I was living in Vegas at the time, and I called my mom, and my parents at the time weren't as supportive of me leaving the corporate world and my insurance and everything that I had, but I just knew that it was time. So I moved in with my sister. I didn't even have an apartment at the time. I had basically nothing except for my 2 dogs. And I lived there for 6 months, and I just got a job waitressing, and so I could get myself like back on my feet. And I started just really spending all of my extra time on building my coaching business, because I knew that that's really what I wanted to do. And I obviously, loved working in corporate too, the time that I did, but I knew my passion was deeper, and I just really love helping people, and me struggling so much myself with, food related issues, anxiety, not knowing, how to eat, what to eat, how to work out. I just knew that I had a greater purpose, and that God was telling me to kind of go into that direction. So that's what I did.
Yeah,
And I kind of took off from there.
Super awesome that you took that leap of faith. What was that turning point that hit you and made you see like, okay, I need to listen to this urge I've been getting and finally do this?
I just didn't enjoy going to work anymore. And I just got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. And I think when you get to that point, when you're just not living your best life and you just don't feel happy waking up, I just knew that I just knew that I was it. And it's scary to leave a job where, you have a good income, I had a nice place. And for me to just be okay with leaving it all, I knew that that was the right thing, that I was making the right choice.
Oh, wow. That's powerful. Yeah. Like to be able to leave stability and know that this is what matters more and it's going to be fine. Like I have to make this decision if I'm so comfortable with, leaving what is so great right now, but not making me happy.
Yeah. And it's crazy because even looking back at that time period, like most people would be like, oh, you're probably like struggling and not in a good place. And that it was literally one of the happier times of my life, because I finally was going after really what I wanted to do. And I was content with where I was at that moment. So
yeah, I mean, you went and you started waitressing, and even though you're going into a job that's waitressing and it's to make extra money and get on your feet, that it's with the intention of building something, beyond what you had at the moment and something that meant more to you.
Yeah. So I waitressed for a year, and then I was at a point where I could just depend solely on my coaching. And now I have over 100 girls on my team, which is just amazing to think about. Coaching lifestyle and competitors, but it's just so crazy just how quickly it transpired. And I think that when you're really passionate about something and you put your whole heart and soul into it, it's easy at that point to make it happen.
Yes, people know your passion. People can see that you care about it. There's something genuine about that as well. It's not the same as, waking up and doing something you don't love or feel inspired by. It's waking up with a mission and a purpose, and people can feel that. And honestly, as an entrepreneur and business owner myself, nothing compares to that feeling of doing what you love, having a mission, fulfilling that mission, helping others. So I also know that with that comes some challenges running your own business. So what are some of the things you've faced with entrepreneurship that has actually led to maybe greater lessons or success for you?
I would say the biggest thing for me is I'm I'm type A when it comes to like sales and getting things done, and like I've always been like that when I was in corporate and things. But as far as organization, I definitely could be better at that. I mean, I I tell you that I love this job so much, I would probably do it for free if I could. I mean, I need to be a lot more organized when it comes to the small details. So I've definitely learned lessons there. And I think for me sometimes, and this is me being completely honest, I get very invested with my clients. So learning to have like that balance, because I'm very close with a lot of them, I tend to take things personal at times, which everybody can, but that would be my biggest lesson I think I've learned as far as with coaching and getting very close to your clients. So
Oh my gosh, that is like, yeah, no, all the organization thing, like I love that. I'm good with that. But it's the boundary setting with clients that's so hard for me too. Like I get, and I mean, not even maybe boundaries, but it is in a way, but it's just when you get so connected and you love your clients so much and you're so invested in them, maybe a
hmm
change or something they say, or even just them, going into a new thing, or maybe being done, having to be like, okay, we actually did exactly what you wanted to do. So this is goodbye.
right.
And then
And
it's
I
like,
I know, and it's hard too because I think it's being a female coach too. Like there's not really a ton of female coaches in the industry, lifestyle coaches. But as far as competing, I think you tend to get really close with your clients on a deeper level, and so it is hard to not take things personal, I guess. So that's
yeah,
definitely a hard part as a coach for me.
definitely.
So,
No, I can relate to that for sure. And someone actually wanted me to ask you what it felt like when you quit your job and became a full-time coach. You did mention that it was one of the happiest times in your life, but I'm curious, I know you answered that one, but I'm kind of curious about how you felt when you were able to leave waitressing and really be a full-time coach.
oh, that was literally one of the best days ever. I got to a point where I kind of, about 6 months into that job, I didn't even mind it because I'm a people person. I was actually not as bad as I thought it would be because I had waitress years ago. But the day that I just didn't have to go there anymore, I mean, that was just a very freeing feeling. I just felt free. Like, I don't really think that I could ever go back into the corporate world unless I absolutely had to. Just because after experiencing that, I feel like I just can't go back.
Oh
It
yeah.
was a very surreal feeling.
Definitely. Yeah, I get it. When I left my job, I felt like, wow, like now I have all this energy and space and time to really commit to the mission I've been building for so long. And then it
Mhm.
gives you that, it's almost like another boost in building your business because you now have that energy and that time to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about your competing. I know you had mentioned, a big part of starting your business came from the background that you had in fitness and specifically with food relationship and even anxiety. And your journey to competing really started with severe anxiety and eating disorders and body image issues. So what made you decide to actually start competing knowing that you were struggling with those things?
Yeah, so when I first got into competing, I actually kind of fell into it by accident, which I feel like most people do. But I had hired a coach, an online coach, and it was just lifestyle. It was the start of a new year. It was January of 2015, and I just kind of wanted someone to help me. She had competed. She wasn't a pro, but we weren't even talking about competing when I first started with her. But I just started seeing all of the changes. And when I first had started with her, she had increased my food a lot, which me having, previous eating issues that I was dealing with, it was really scary for me. So for me to actually go through all of that with her, she helped me a lot. And that kind of transpires into what I do now, helping others. But back then we just became really close, and I started seeing all of these changes, and she was like, hey, I really want to coach someone through a competition. Would you be interested in having me coach you through it? Because she kind of wanted to practice prepping someone. I was like, hey, why not? Let's do it. And, ever since then, it's kind of skyrocketed from there. I fell in love with it. So that's kind of how I got started into competing. But after my first show with her, I actually took a whole year off of competing. And then I started competing again the next full year. And then I did my first national show. I got second place there. And then I went on to Miami Nationals, and that's where I earned my pro card. So I did turn pro pretty quickly. And then from there, it's kind of taken off. I'm going on my third season as a pro this year.
Okay, so first of all, that's awesome how that transpired. The fact that she's like, I want to prep someone, do you want to do it? Like, imagine if she just didn't even ask you.
Yeah, she was just like, I think you'd be really good. I think it's something that you might like. And I had friends back then, but I feel like competing in itself has really taken off the last few years or so. So it really, no one I knew was really even doing it. I knew a couple of people, but yeah, I just kind of was like, what the heck, let's do it. And it wasn't as an extreme for me back then as I would say it is now, as far as like your level of conditioning and kind of the package that you need to bring. But, it was super fun, and I met so many nice girls, which is why I love competing too. Everybody in the industry is just super fun. And yeah, I fell in love with it after that.
For sure. Yeah, no, it's obvious that you have a passion for it and that you really like it. And you're also helping other girls to prep now too. So I have like so many questions going through my head right now, so I'm trying to like think where do I want to go with this. But you turned pro pretty quickly, you said, and you took a year off after your very first show. During that year off, what were you focused on? What were you doing?
So I had just moved from Tampa to Vegas at the time, so I had a new job. I really honestly wasn't even working out that much, to be honest. I was just kind of doing my thing in a new environment. I had moved away from home for the first time ever, so I was just kind of getting my feet wet there. And then I just woke up one day and I wanted to compete again. So that's when I started going after it again.
You're very much a wake up and know you got to do something and go and do it person.
Yeah, apparently that's how I am. I'm like, all right, let's do this. I'm ready.
No, I think that's awesome. And I think a lot of go-getters are like that. So it's pretty cool to see how that's paid off for you, and a really good, I guess, example of like what happens when we honor ourselves and we honor the nudges that we get. And you had been struggling with your mindset, specifically with anxiety. When did your anxiety start, and what did that look like for you in your daily life?
So I got diagnosed with generalized anxiety. So it's not triggered by one particular thing. It can be different things. A lot of it happens with changes in my environment, or certain things that are going on around me can trigger me to have anxiety. I never really had like full-blown panic attacks. It was more just being anxious in general. And I worry a lot, just about everything. So that started when I was 13, and it's definitely been a lot less more recently, but I struggle with it still. So I started the whole mindset thing probably 2 years ago, and I would just wake up every single morning and I would listen to motivational videos, and I would just get my mindset right first thing in the day. And that tend to help me work through those anxious thoughts that I was having. So that's a lot of what my anxiety is. I would constantly just think negative, or I worried a lot about my mom dying when I was younger. I had like a really big fear. Her and I are like super close. So it started with that, and then it would go to like relationship issues and like social anxiety. So it would always constantly change kind of depending on which stage I was going through in my life. But it's definitely subsided a lot now that I have more confidence, which I feel like competing brought me a lot of confidence. And then obviously sticking true to the slogan that I talk about all the time, really focusing on having a good mindset.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, 100% agree with that. That's one of my passions. And did you ever see a mental health professional? You mentioned you were diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, so I'm guessing maybe you did. Or, yeah, let me start there. Did you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, I did. When I was younger, my mom kind of she was like she thought it would be like funny because she thought that I was joking, but I really was like having like I was very, very worried and anxious. So when she kind of found out like, hey, like I think because it runs in my family, different like my grandpa had like OCD and was very worried all the time. It kind of runs in my family. So when I finally went to someone, she diagnosed me with that when I was 13, and then I went on Zoloft. So I did go on medication for a little bit, but I didn't like the way that the medication made me feel. It just made me feel like very unemotional and unattached from everything. And I felt like I could definitely cope with things better, but I didn't feel like myself. So I wasn't on medication for very long. And then I got so sick of it affecting my life, and it affected relationships. And I lost a lot of friendships because I would just be too anxious, and people didn't want to hang out with me because they're just like, Morgan's always going to like cry or something's going to happen. And so it just started impacting my life so negatively that I needed to fix it. And so that's kind of why I had such a big push for it now, because I know people that struggle with anxiety, it can take over your life and it can impact your friends, your family. And it's important to really try to figure it out the best that
Yeah.
you can.
Oh, absolutely. So you mentioned that you'd started listening to motivational videos every morning, getting your mindset in the right place. What were some of the other things you did to work through or treat that anxiety so that you could, I know you mentioned bodybuilding also made you more confident. Like what helped you to like really work through it so that it didn't start or didn't continue impacting your relationships?
A lot of meditation helps me too. And just really being in tune with my goals and what I wanted to accomplish. So when I'm not kidding, I would wake up in front of the mirror and like talk to myself in the morning sometimes, like, you're a badass, you can do this, like, don't let anxiety control your life, because when you're dealing with those type of things, it is kind of like you have, good versus evil sometimes inside of your mind, and you're trying to figure out which direction to go. And those negative thoughts can really take over very quickly if you're not careful. So I just really focus on hyping myself up every single day. And I still do that in my routine. Like I wake up, I listen to something motivational. My top two people, I really like Gary Vee and I listen to Tony Robbins a lot. And then I also watch like sermons, but just my relationship with God too. All of those things have kind of helped me, but it's like another thing that I always talk about is not losing your discipline. You have to have discipline, not only with your health and fitness goals, but also with your mindset. I would say that it's probably the most important thing over those two. So,
Oh, yeah. I agree 100%. I don't believe that we can actually create the results we want to create in
mhm,
fitness, especially as competitors, if we don't have our mindset in the right place, because we need to have a mindset that actually supports our long-term goals. And if we don't exercise it, then we're not going to have like the stamina to actually pursue and
mhm,
continue to pursue that. We'll be succumb by the pressure. We'll overwhelm ourselves. If it's, food related, it's going to play a massive role, and it's going to probably prevent us from making physical progress as well. And you did mention the meditation helped you a lot too. There's definitely been studies that show that people who meditate end up doing better in anxiety inducing situations, or just tough situations in general. Like athletes who have used it, for example, they'll be under pain, like it'll be painful, whatever they're doing, their training session. But those athletes who meditated more ended up experiencing less pain, like their perception of it or their ability to move through it was a lot better than those who didn't meditate. And so I think that, just becoming present with yourself, like you said, even before stepping on stage, you get really present, is super beneficial. And I think athletes, especially competitors, need to start prioritizing their mindset more. And you shared with us some of the things you do every day. And I love that. And I do want to add, like, immersion into personal development is so similar to what I went through. I was really depressed and suicidal. Those were my issues that got me into like this passion as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right about how it's like that evil versus good inside of you, and you have to
Yeah.
start having those conversations and saying, enough is enough. Like, I don't want to be this person anymore. And I don't think I've ever talked about this specifically on my podcast, this specific story. I think it's in my book actually. But anyway, one time, like, I was at school and I got called into the office, and they said, like, some of my friends had been reporting that I was like appearing suicidal and that they were worried about me, and I was saying things to them, and I for sure was. I know that looking back, I was very depressed, and I was expressing it. It was like not like I was crying for help, but I was, especially as an
Mm-hmm.
adolescent. That's like, your peers are who you turn to. And I remember they called me in the office, and
Right.
they were like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to be this way. And I was in denial about it, right? Because I was supposed to be the strong leader, like captain of the team, like the smart, the good friend, the one who's going for things. You know what I mean? Like, I had all these identities that prevented me from actually resolving what was going on. And when I finally took the step to do that, getting therapy and then immersing myself in personal development, my life started to change. And it was like I didn't have to worry about this unknown darkness coming out of me and controlling my life anymore. It was more like
Mm-hmm.
I was able to take control of my life straight away. And it sounds like that's been your experience with implementing a lot of those daily rituals.
Yeah. And, those things are all really good points too. And it's just, and I think for me also a big trigger is being very codependent. I always needed to be around people or have a boyfriend or whatever the case was. I couldn't really figure out how to fix my problems on my own. And when I had moved out to Vegas and I was there by myself and I kind of had to make new friends and I didn't really have my family around me, I was kind of forced. So into figuring out who I was, what I wanted to accomplish, and kind of where I wanted to go and the direction that I wanted to take with my life, because I just wasn't happy anymore. So I think sometimes really the self-development helps because it kind of forces you into becoming confident with not only yourself, but being confident in the decisions that you need to make, and it makes a big difference. So
Yeah, you were forced into this new role, and you were forced into this new environment, which previously would have been and is and was, I'm sure, really daunting and overwhelming for you. And it almost got you back against the wall and said, like, that's what allowed you to say enough is enough. I'm ready to make a
mm-hmm.
change. So I love that you said that. That's such a great point. And I think a lot of people, like I said, can relate to this. I mean, we know statistically there are, I can't even tell you the exact statistic, but we know that a good majority of the population experiences anxiety and has been diagnosed with it. Now thinking about the people who have never been diagnosed with it but have it, um,
Right.
there's definitely a difference between having an anxiety disorder and just having anxiety. But it is
Yes.
something that a lot of people struggle with. And in your case, you have preached and you say when you change your mindset, you change your life, which I know, there's a lot of people who would agree with you on that. So what are some of the things that you recommend to your clients to do in order for them to maybe move through their mental struggles?
Well, the biggest thing for me is, when I was going through anxious moments myself, or when I have those moments that pop up now, I really try to focus on being present. I said that before, right before I step on stage. But if you think about anxiety, a lot of anxieties, you're thinking about something in the future, something that might happen in 3 weeks from now, or you're thinking about something in the past, something that's making you anxious that's already happened. So if I have a client that texts me and, let's say they got off their meal plan, they're super anxious, it's something that's technically already happened. So I really try to force them into being present and figuring out what they can focus on right now in this moment to make them feel better. And we'll kind of talk about it, or we'll jump on the phone. I'm very, very available to my clients because I know and I think that I tend to attract the clientele that works for me because they kind of know that I've had those struggles. So a lot of my clients do have similar issues. So I make myself really available that if they need to call me, they can, or if they need to text me. But I just think the biggest thing is being present, because I think people are so worried about things that they can't control or things that have already happened that it kind of prohibits them from making good choices, and they just kind of stay stuck in that negative spiral. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a really key insight there, and I think anyone who applies that can benefit from it. And I love how you brought it up with a specific example, like with food, because that is something that is usually coming from, that place of guilt, and
Mhm.
guilt is usually stemming from, acting in a way that's different than our identity. So as competitors, we identify as people who stick to our plan. So if someone goes off plan, then they're guilt ridden. But can we change?
Right.
No, it's like when you're in traffic, you can't change that there's traffic, but you can change what you're doing about it. Like yelling at the cars isn't going to change the fact that they're all in front of you. And it's
Right.
thing here, like yelling at yourself, beating yourself up, telling yourself you suck, you're the worst, you're not a competitor, you can't succeed, doesn't help. And it's actually going to, like you said, cause a downward spiral, keep you in a negative place, when all you have to do is say, what can I focus on now that's going to be more beneficial for me, and become present in this moment and see what's really the reality here.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a deeper issue, or something else that is obviously not even related to maybe going off the plan, or food in general. It could be something else going on in your life, but really kind of trying to figure out what's triggering the anxiety. So I'll kind of talk to them about that, and then obviously things that they can do moving forward. And we've kind of already talked about those things, but I just think how you start your day is really, it really just sets the tone, having that motivation first thing in the morning, whatever that might be for you. That could be reading a book, listening to some sort of podcast, but the energy that you surround yourself with, that's going to set the tone for the day. So if you're waking up and you're looking at your phone and you're looking at Instagram and you're comparing yourself to 12 fitness models, and then you went off your diet the night before, you're going to wake up and be like, what the heck? Like, this day sucks already. So I don't even look at my phone first thing in the morning. I just try to go to my computer and like type something in. I try to stay away from my phone, because you just never know who could text you a message or what you're going to see first thing. And I just think it's important to start your day with a positive mindset
Could
before you
not agree
tackle things
more.
that are bothering you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like, don't give in to the automatic programming of your mind that literally already exists. Like, we exist in this world that we've created within our mind, right? Based on what we experience every single day. So the
Right.
things that we expect are based on the things that have happened, or things that, based on what have happened, are likely going to happen moving forward, if that makes sense. Which I know it does to you. um, but
Yeah.
it's like, the reason why we have these, future perceptions or ideas that might come up is because of past things. And so if we wake up and the first thing we do is what we feel called to do, which is like connect with what's going on in our life, what's going on in our world. Are things still the same, or is something gone wrong, something different? And that's because our body wants to keep us, our brain really wants to keep us safe. And so then we start like, okay, I have to know that it's okay, and I'm going to go into my automatic programming. But if you want to change your life, if you want to change the way you feel, if you want to change the way you perceive yourself, or perceive, your situations that you're in, then you have to start by creating a new program. And how do you do that? You literally have to create a new one. So like you said, instead of looking at your phone, maybe it's, I'm going to go meditate, or I'm going to go type something in my computer, journal, whatever it is. And
Yeah.
let that set your tone. Like you said too, I have my do not disturb on all morning, all night, like do not disturb, because I'm going to be in control of what I see first, like you said. And I love that. Like, I'm going to do the journaling, or I'm going to do the fasted cardio, and no one's going to bother me until I decide I'm ready to actually connect with people in a way that serves them and myself. Otherwise, I'm doing a disservice.
Yeah, no, exactly. I was just about to say that you already beat me to
Really?
it, but yeah. But yeah, like I don't know, it's just like if you wake up in a bad mood, and then you're trying to, put everything together for your meal prep, and then something happens, it's just like it's a downward spiral, and then by the end of the day you're just like, I just need to go home and close all the doors and go to bed. So it's just, I don't know, it's just I think just people forget to do those little things, and it's even only a couple minutes, and you think like
Yes.
5 minutes to just listen to something that hypes you up, whatever it is, and just puts you in the state of mind, it really does make a difference. And I just think that it's kind of like when people start a meal plan or they start a new program, they're into it and then they forget to do it. And so it's something that I really force myself to do, whether you set an alarm to remind yourself to do it. I just think that people need to be really disciplined in that aspect, because I think it's easy to kind of put yourself at the bottom when you need to put yourself at the top. So.
That's so right. That is 100% true. Like you even said before, it's a matter of prioritizing your mindset in a similar way that you prioritize, if not more, that your fitness and your nutrition. And I think, competitors are so focused on, in order to be my best, I have to eat all my meal plan. I have to work out all the time. I have to push harder, blah, blah. But it's like, well, what's happening in your mind? Like, what's actually going on when you wake up? What are the thoughts that are entering your head? How do you feel when you go and approach the food, or when you go and approach the scale to check in, or when you're taking, like, what's going on in your head? And why don't we start valuing that more? Because it definitely plays a role in the way we're going to feel and the way we're going to approach our life. And it's going to make a big difference. And I know that you had previously struggled with eating disorders, and I'd like to know what eating disorders you struggled with and what it looked like for you.
So in middle school, I was kind of overweight, I would say, and I got bullied a lot in middle school, which, people looking at me now might think she has this perfect life and it's easy to, judge people. But I really, really struggled when I was younger, and I simply just didn't really care. I didn't really care about working out. I mean, I was in middle school. So when I got into high school, I just hit puberty, and I started, losing a lot of the weight that I had on me at the time. And I just got obsessed with being skinny because I hadn't really been skinny before. And I just didn't eat. I over-exercised. So I would say I wasn't full-blown anorexic, but I had anorexic tendencies. And then I did go through a stage of bulimia as well. It wasn't something I did every single day. So I wouldn't say I was in full-blown eating disorders, but I did over-exercise. I did not eat a lot, and I would go through times where I would throw up after eating and things like that. And I went through that for several years. And actually what stopped me from, continuing to do that is, my mom caught me one time. I was in the bathroom, and, I saw my mom just so scared just for seeing her daughter go through that it kind of just put in perspective to me, I really need to make a change. So when I got into college is when I kind of didn't have any more eating disorders, but I didn't work out. I went through 2 years where I just really didn't do anything. I just kind of focused on school and my friends. I really wasn't working out. And then when I was 25, I started getting into competing in fitness again. So
I got the chills when you said that about your mom.
Yeah, I mean, she caught me one time in the bathroom, and my heart just dropped, because it's your mom, and I was someone that really, really cares about you. And I'm I need to stop this, because it's just, I don't want to hurt my mom like that. And she had already dealt enough with me with my anxiety. And I know I mentioned my mom a lot. My dad was definitely a big part of my life too, but I just have a special bond with my mom. But yeah, so that's kind of what kind of triggered me to take some action to bettering myself at that time. So.
Wow. Okay. I love that. And I appreciate you sharing that journey and taking us on it with you. You mentioned that the habits you were having, you started with being bullied in middle school, and you were overweight, and it was a really tough time for you. And in high school, when puberty hit, you weaned out a lot. So then, because you hadn't seen that before, you wanted to keep going and really hold on to that. And did you feel like there was a positive reinforcement, maybe from others or within yourself, for being skinny that made you want to maintain it?
Yeah, because I just remember in middle school, never forget this, but I was I used to just stare at the girls that were smaller than me. And I was just like, oh, like I used to come home and tell like my parents, like, I want to look like this. And, you know, I was just so young at the time. Like, I don't even, it's just crazy to think that this is what kids like go through sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of even makes me emotional. But I remember like I was looking at this girl and she's like, you're fat. Like, what are you staring at me for? And I just remember like, wow. And then that's kind of what triggered me to stop eating. And that's why sometimes you just really have to be careful with what you say to people because you don't really know what they're going through. I mean, I just wanted to look like her and I just thought she was pretty, but like she was really mean to me back. And that's kind of why I have the personality that I do. Like, I'm very humble. I treat everybody with respect just because you really don't know when you say something. Like, that girl kind of triggered me to have eating issues, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And people just don't realize the words that they say can trigger people to have certain things happen to them or lead them into, you know, self-destruction. So that's kind of what got me into it, I guess.
Oh man.
So.
Yeah, similar
And
story.
then you said like, when I got into high school, yeah, I
If there
mean,
were positive
I was captain of the
reinforcements.
cheerleading team. I was, you know, I guess you could say like a popular girl like in high school. And so I kind of liked the way that I looked. That's kind of when I started getting more confident, I guess. So
Yeah.
it wasn't until I hired that girl online when I was 25. I was still like under eating. I never like really got away from that, but I didn't restrict myself too much, and I didn't obviously like have bulimia tendencies. But when she increased my food to like 2,000 calories, I freaked out. I was like, oh my God, this is way too much food. But going through that with her really helped me get a grip on my relationship with food. But, you know, that was I'm going to be 30 this year. So that's about 5 years ago that I really started having a good relationship with food.
Yeah, it's a very like dynamic issue, and it can be caused by so many different things for so many different people. And I know with competing, like all the like what I do is I work with competitors to make peace with food. So what I notice a lot is that when competitors have, let's say, like this positive reinforcement of continuously dropping in weight or continuously like looking lean, then when those things go away and they're no longer being positively reinforced with it, and then, you know, maybe they start binging or maybe they already were, and then they end up showing bulimic behavior through purging and not throwing up as much as it is over exercising or reducing their food, and it creates that negative relationship of, I can't increase my calories in food now because I've already gone overboard, right? And so we have to really work on creating and establishing that level of self-love and that level of appreciation for the body before we commit to things like that, or at least have the awareness and the healthy relationship with food before. So I'm saying this because I'm really happy that you found a coach who brought you that before you even started competing and then supported you in your first prep, which is really awesome. So do you ever still find yourself struggling with your body image or your relationship with food?
Yes, definitely more so now, just because I'm naturally petite. I'm 5'2", and I always am pretty much like 107 pounds on stage. So for me, I needed to grow, and so which requires more food. But I think that for me, I'm just someone that goes slower since I have had, you know, past issues with not having a good relationship with food. It's definitely taken me time, but I just go at my own pace. And I think that that's really what separates me as a coach, is that you really have to know your clients and what they're comfortable with, and really get to know their food habits and their relationship with food, because everyone's so different. I mean, I know my clients that I can, you know, push food on them and they're going to be like, thank you very much. And then I know my clients that are going to struggle with that and are going to need to take it at their own pace. So I think for me, over the years, I've gradually increased my food at my own pace, even if that's put me a little bit more behind. I think that you have to be happy every single day. I'm really big on that. So if you're not comfortable with something, then you need to make yourself comfortable. And if you need to go slower than somebody else, then you go slower. But that's kind of been the biggest thing for me is kind of going at my own pace.
Yes. I love that. It's such a powerful reminder, especially to the girls who sometimes feel a lot of the pressure of competing or the pressure of prepping in a certain amount of time or the pressure of already picking a show date and then needing to change it or whatever. And that can cause, like you said, there's a lack of enjoyment that maybe comes from that, instead of just going like, here's what I actually need, and therefore I have to take a different approach than maybe the 100 other competitors I follow on Instagram. And not comparing, because it can lead to comparison, of course. So I like that you're saying, it's okay to go at your own pace, and it's okay to understand that you need to go at your own pace, and then of course embrace it.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of macro shaming is what I call it, because I feel like what you're saying, a lot of people compare and they feel like they're doing something wrong because where they're at, because you just don't know everyone's history with eating and what they've been through. And it's just, sometimes you see other people's calories and their macros and you think that you're doing something wrong, but everybody's journey is just different and everybody's bodies are just different. And I just think that that's a big thing that I would like to see more influencers talk about, just because I feel like when you're always talking about, your clients' macros being so high, you have to be careful because you can affect other people, again, kind of triggering certain people to think that they're less than because their macros aren't there for whatever reason. So.
Oh my gosh. I love that you just brought that up. That is the
Yeah,
truth.
it's like my client is eating this, but they could have a crazy fast metabolism, and then you have someone else that might not ever compete again because they're like, well, my metabolism sucks. So it's just, I just wish people kind of talked about that more. That's why I don't really post a lot about my clients' nutrition and kind of what they're eating, because I don't want to make another one of my clients feel like they're not as good as someone because of where their food is at. Everybody's food capacity is different. So.
And isn't it ironic how this is coming from coaches and people who know that everyone is different, and yet they use it to like market and get more people to be like, oh, if I join that team or this coach, then I'm going to be eating 400 grams of carbs and losing weight. When it's like, not always.
Yeah, and I'm someone that I'm just now getting to 200 grams of carbs, and I'm like, hey, like that's a milestone for me, because I'm a pretty small person. I mean, and it wasn't even that I had a coach that was telling me not to eat that. It was just at the time, like, that's where my capacity was metabolically, and I was full. So that was me pushing food. And right now, my calories are getting up there, but, so it's just, everyone is just so different. So that's one thing that I try to really address with my clients, is not being so focused on the numbers that they're consuming macro-wise or meal plan-wise, or just focusing on more so how they're feeling. How do you feel with the amount of food that you have? Where is your mindset? Do you feel restricted? Are you content with how you feel? I think that more people need to talk about that versus how much they're eating number-wise. So.
Yes. Preach. I totally agree. I love that you're shedding light on this. I think it's so important. I wish that would change about the industry too, specifically within coaching. And I also really hope that, because this podcast reaches a lot of competitors, I hope it sheds some light on and perspective to maybe a better way to approach how you look at your nutrition. I think a lot of us go on autopilot, and I've talked about this on the show before. We go on autopilot following our coach's plan, whether that's meal plan or macros. And so we kind of start losing connection between how our body's actually feeling. So the more that we can, perform a mealtime ritual or reflect every day on how our body feels, then the more we can be connected to our body and making those conscious choices, which won't come from just, oh, I'm just going to focus on how many macros I'm eating, and then realizing, oh, I haven't noticed if I have a hunger cue for the last 8 months.
Right. And because it's funny, because people are so focused on the numbers, but I have my clients like track for a few days, like before we actually start, and just kind of get a figure like, hey, what were you eating? And most of the time people are under eating. Yeah. But then you see stuff on Instagram, like they're eating maybe 1,000, 1,200 calories. But if you were to make a post saying I have a client that's eating this, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, you're not a good coach, or this person is starving, but really they're not. Most people are under eating. So that's kind of a big push that I have just as a coach, is, more so focusing on your clients, mindset, how they're feeling, versus just kind of, it's just the whole Instagram thing, but I know you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's definitely an issue, but the more people who can band together and stand up against it and promote what matters and promote, the good message and support competitors and seeing that, the better. And I love that you're doing that. I love connecting with people who value these kinds of things because it's something I'm super passionate about as well. And to that point, actually, I would love to know, because my mission is build more than just a body. And what I do is focus on like making peace with food, their body, and their goals, specifically for competitors. Although I help non-competitors too. But regardless, I want to know from you, someone who values this, and you've shared a lot of your mindset tricks already, but what are some habits you do specifically to keep you in a positive place with food and your body? Because you did talk about your goals already.
So I would say that I've always kind of been a healthy eater, not so much because I'm scared of processed food, but because it's kind of the food that makes me feel good. So, when I'm in my uncomfortable stages, like, kind of pushing food a little bit to where I need to be in order to grow the muscle that I need in order to be competitive on the pro stage, I just tend to eat on the healthier side. So I stick to like an 80-20 rule when it comes to my macros personally. I'm a huge sweet person, which is why I opened a cookie company with Ashley, my friend. And we have this ice cream place here. It's called Delights. They don't have them in a lot of other places, but I just have a dessert every single day. So
Yes.
that keeps me that keeps me sane. So that's kind of like my 20% off thing that I have off my plan. But I like the food that I eat. I don't feel restricted, and that's kind of taken practice, but I just try to keep things in my diet that I truly enjoy and that bring me happiness, because food does bring you joy. I mean, I love eating. So I just try to be creative with my food and keep things in my diet that I enjoy. And then I don't feel as restricted. And so that kind of keeps me in a positive headspace.
Exactly. That is spot on advice, spot on insight. And I appreciate you sharing that. And I hope that other people take that as a great way of, like, almost like a permission slip to do the same thing. Like, it's okay to
Yeah.
actually enjoy your food. It's okay to choose a way of life in this pursuit of your goals as a competitor that you actually enjoy. Like, some of the girls who come from my food relationship program, I always tell them, I'm like, especially if they're in their off season, start having like one treat every single day, like something they'd consider like a treat every single day, because it then normalizes that food and it allows you to see that your world isn't over, it's not ending, and it's like a form of like mini exposure therapy if we were to apply that. And
Yep.
it makes a big difference in how people feel about food, and they no longer see like chocolate or cookies as, a negative thing. It just becomes, okay, this is just part of my life. I can actually allow this and have it, and it's not a trigger food. It doesn't cause me to go off the rails, because we eliminate, like you said, the restricted mindset. You say you no longer feel restricted. Well, that's great, and that's probably why you're able to sustain your results for so long.
Yeah, and I think that, exactly what you're saying is, when I have clients that have an episode where they binge or they go off their plan, it's usually because they're being too restricted. Even if they're counting macros, you have to have things in your day-to-day diet that bring you joy food-wise. If it's something small, like it's always something small for me usually, but I like every meal that I eat. Honestly, I make it something that I enjoy eating, and then I don't feel restricted, and then you have more control, and you don't tend to go off your plan.
Yes, and on the subject of yummy things, Cookie Company, you launched it in October with Ashley Bowden, who I was Bowden?
Bowden, yeah.
Bowden, who I was
Yeah.
actually just talking to. So I'd love to know what inspired you to start Drizzle Cookie Company.
So Ashley and I are best friends, and then she also is my client. So I met her a little over a year ago, our actually coaching anniversary is this Friday, but we both love cookies. So when I wasn't competing last year, every time that we would get together, we would have a shot of Tito's and a cookie from like a new place. And that was kind of our thing. And she loves baking, and I've always wanted to start a cookie company for 3 years now. It's just cookies are like my thing. And I don't even remember, we kind of like blacked out, I guess, when we had this conversation, not because we were drinking, but we can't both remember like the pivot moment that we decided like, hey, we're going to do this. But we just both have such a passion for cookies, and it's just so fun with her. Like, obviously having a business with your best friend is just amazing. And it's just really cool. So we actually launched it pretty fast. I mean, we got everything together within like 2 months. And then we started planning out all the cookies. And once we got the recipe right, and obviously going through all that stuff, we just kind of hit the ground running, and it's been very successful so far. So we're super happy.
Yes, I'm super happy for you guys. That's awesome. I love to hear that.
Yeah.
So, okay, now I want to like get into the nitty-gritty, but like, do you bake them? Does she bake them? Do you bake them together like, how does this whole production work?
So obviously we live in different places. So she lives in Mount Dora. I live in Tampa, which is like, she's closer to Orlando. So we have a kitchen over where she lives. So Ashley, we get together once a month, depending on how many orders I have, or we have together. But right now, Ashley is mainly cooking most of them. And then I handle all the marketing aspects of the company. So that's kind of where we're at right now, just because we don't live together. So, but we just had like 35 orders in like 2 days last week or 2 weeks ago before Christmas. So we were up for literally like 24 hours. So if we have a ton of orders, yes. Okay. Well, we baked for like 9 hours. I'm not even kidding. Like, our feet hurt so bad. It was fun. But we have fun when we do it. So with the holidays and stuff, it was a little bit crazy, but we can only pick one area to have a kitchen. So it's just more convenient for her and kind of what worked for both of us at the time. So, but I don't know where we'll go from here. We want to get like a food truck and do some stuff locally and kind of go to different places around here and where she lives. So that's kind of our next endeavor.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Drive over to California.
I know. We said we should do like a tour. Like, go
that'd
to
be
each state.
so cool. You guys might as well. You could write it off as a business expense, but it's really a road trip.
I know.
We won't talk about that. The IRS doesn't need to know it.
I know.
Just kidding. Let's erase all of what I just said. Totally kidding. But that's pretty awesome. So, yeah, I mean, I've noticed, and I'm sure you've noticed it too. I don't know if it's just a competitor thing. I feel like there's not a lot of humans who don't like cookies. Like, cookies are the bomb. I love them. They've always been like my go-to dessert. They're awesome. But it seems like recently cookies have really hit the competitive world more intensely the past year or two. So do you find that most of your customers are competitors, or are they other people as well?
I would say there are other people as well. Like, we're in a lot of businesses too, and we kind of wanted to be different. Like, I didn't want to just be online, which is kind of why we had the food truck idea.
Yeah.
Just because I think a lot of people tend to like miss things locally. So we're trying to focus on that, and obviously being online too. But yeah, I mean, I would say it's like 50-50. So competitor versus other people. But yeah, that's kind of our plans going forward, is getting into like businesses and corporate stuff and tackling like the local market.
That'd be awesome. So we do
like a lot of like baby showers and weddings, things like that.
That's cool. How'd you even get like the word out? Like, what were some of your first steps to getting like people in your area to know that, hey, we exist?
So a lot of flyers. So we made flyers, and I put them in like a lot of mailboxes around here. And then I actually had a guy friend that was in sales, and he does a lot of work with companies with lasers, like plastic surgery offices and doctors. So he ended up, for his like sales meetings, he wanted to use our cookies. So we got really fortunate with that, getting into a lot of businesses that way. And then Ashley does physical therapy. So she is constantly seeing different people. So I think it's just talking about it. I mean, it's so funny when I go to the bank to talk about businesses, or we were opening the cookie account. I'm like, nobody really cared about my coaching account, but when you mention cookies, like people just tend to ask you about them. So it's kind of an easy business to market. People are like, oh, what kind of cookies? And then I was on an airplane and I had 5 orders by the time I got off the airplane going to one of my shows with these guys. Cause like, I just think that it's so easy to talk about. Like everybody likes cookies for the most part.
Right.
So I just feel like it's something we're always talking about, both of us. So that's kind of how we got the word out more.
Passion, persistence, and just like genuinely wanting to spread the word, which is just awesome. And like you said, most people like cookies, and because of this, I think there's been an explosion of cookies. Now, I personally love that there are so many different cookies, and just companies in general, like whether that's clothing, cookies, supplements, whatever. You can choose from so many different things. But what do you think, because there's certain things that drives us as buyers, right? So what do you think sets your company apart from others and keeps people coming back for more?
I think that our company apart from others is just the different drizzle toppings that we have. That's kind of how we came up with the name. And I see more and more companies doing it now. But when we first launched it, nobody really had that. And I just think that that's really unique. And then some of the things that no one really had, like drizzle on top of the cookies.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of where we got the name, and kind of what separates us, I think, from a lot of different people, is just the different topping that we have on our cookies. And I don't know, like all cookies are good. So I would say that that's the one thing that's different, because I know everybody has like their own opinions when it comes to cookies, but our snickerdoodle cookie is, with the cinnamon roll on top, is out of this world. And the red velvet cookie with Oreos, those are easily my top 2.
I was going
I
to
could eat
ask
those
you
all
that
day.
next.
I actually can't have them in my house. I have my boyfriend vacuum seal them, because I'm like, I can't have them, or they will be gone. So
That's awesome. So do you know the macros for your cookies?
I actually do. I made Ashley do this, and one night I was like, I need to know the macros, and she's like, why? Just eat it. And I'm like, because like we should know what they are. But I would say on average per cookie, they're around 330 calories to 400, because they're pretty big. Anywhere from like 15 to 18 grams of fat, about 40 to 50 carbs, and the protein's pretty low. I would say about like 11 grams of protein. So that's kind of on average what they are.
Nice. Yeah, I was curious because I noticed not a lot of cookie companies, list or have or even know their macros, but it's cool that you have like a basic idea. And yeah, that
Yeah.
red velvet one looks awesome with the Oreos. I was like, what a smart idea.
Yes. Yeah. I came up with the Oreo idea. I don't even know how I came up with that, but we were just, because, when you're thinking about stuff that got to go in cookies, I'm like, red velvet is just a hard one. Because I'm like, you think like, we had like white, or we had macadamia nuts in it to begin with, and we ended up changing it to Oreos, and it's out of this world. That cookie is literally the best, and I think that that's a favorite from our customers as well.
Wow. So, okay, you mentioned you can't have them in your house because you will eat all of them. One of our listeners actually wanted to know if running a cookie company has impacted your reverse dieting.
I have had my moments for sure, where I'm like, dang it, I just ate a cookie. But again, I do kind of know the macros on them. So if I do slip up, I'll just track it. But yes, and I blame this solely on Ashley, because we get together, and she was on prep for Miami Nationals, and we made this peppermint cookie. And she's like, just have a bite of it. And I'm like, Ashley, like, I'm not going to eat a bite of this, because I'm going to eat the whole dang thing. And she's like, come on, just like try it. And she sabotaged me for sure. But I ended up eating the whole thing. But I don't know. We always joke, like, that Tito's and cookies make us look more vascular. So whenever we do mess up, we're like, hey, it's all good. We're going to look more vascular. So I always do it in a positive light because I just think you can't have that mindset that if you slip up on something, I think it's okay. I was very happy in that moment eating that cookie, so I don't have any regrets.
Yeah, it's not like it was coming from a place of like, oh my God, I haven't had cookies in forever. I'm going to binge on all these cookies. And it's going to be nuts. And then after I ate it, I was going to do
Yeah.
all this cardio and restrict all my food the rest of it. Like, no, just like you ate the cookie, it's done.
But it was hard because obviously now we know what our cookies taste like, but it was very challenging. My boyfriend was like, you cannot feed me any more cookies because I've gained like 10 pounds. Like,
Oh my
because
God.
I'd be like, Derek, you have to try this cookie. And he's like, Morgan, stop feeding me cookies. And the same thing with Ashley's husband as well. So it was just kind of funny. So Derek's like, I'm glad we like have a break from trying all these cookies because they're so freaking good. And I was gaining too much weight from eating them.
That was like to develop
So
like the made cookie base or dough or what?
no, just like the cookies. Cause like, when you start a cookie company, cookies always taste good. Like right when you make them. And when we were first starting out, we needed to try like what they tasted like in 3 days and in 5
Yeah.
days. So how they shipped and things like that. So Derek just wanted to kill me at that point. He's like, I'm cookied out. So
That's awesome. No, this is super cute. I love the way you're describing it. It sounds like it's something you're super passionate about, and it's awesome that you've been able to pursue two things that you really love. And of course, you are entering your third season as a pro too, which is another thing that you're super passionate about and you love as well. So, what are some of the things, or what are some of your personal goals with competing?
so obviously, my goal is to make it to the Olympia. Coming from my first season as a pro, cause when I first started competing, I got my pro card really, really fast. And I think everyone kind of experiences, but for the most part, kind of highs and lows in their career competing. And my first year as a pro, I went straight to last call outs, my pro debut. I consistently was in, third and second call outs my second year. And then it wasn't until the end of, well, last year I did really well. I ended up in first call outs pretty much majority of the year. And I had this curse, I swear, of seventh place. I literally got seventh place at every one of my shows that I did last year.
Oh, no.
And so this year, a big goal of mine, honestly, I don't really like to set placing expectations, but I would like to place in a show. So that's definitely a goal. And obviously to make it to the Olympia is my ultimate goal. But more so, this year I went through a lot of struggles with my mindset a little bit. I think from consistently getting the same place, I got to a point where I was being very negative, not necessarily about competing, but more negative on myself. Like, I'm not good enough. And, I just kept pushing and pushing for shows and pushing because I just wanted to prove to myself that I could place above seventh. And I think it was a big lesson for me last year that I just needed to take a break and kind of refocus myself and realize that a placing at a show doesn't define who I am. And I needed to get my mindset in a better place. So that's kind of been my main focus since I last competed, which was November 2nd until now, is really focusing on realizing that I am good enough. And I think that that's a lot of what people don't talk about either, is even though I preach like positivity and mindset and good vibes and all that, I still struggle. And I think that's something that people should know too, that it's okay to struggle and it's okay to have those moments. You just need to work through them and realize that certain things happen in order for you to get to a better place. So I'm a big advocate that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, me too. I 100% believe that. And I love that you opened up about that and said you're not perfect either. You still go through things, but the difference is that you address them and you see them as opportunities for growth, which is awesome. And I've noticed like this prep for me, I've been challenged and I've been challenged in new ways that I haven't been before, where I took so much time off and it was really worth it. It had to be done anyways. And then now that I'm back, well, I've been back in a prep, but now that I have a show date actually picked out, because I didn't have one picked out for a while and it felt great, no pressure. And then I picked a show date and I was starting
Yeah.
to feel that a little bit. And then I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to be ready? And I had all these thoughts and I was like, these are the things that I help people with, but I'm still struggling a little bit. And it was like, I just have to implement what I know needs to be implemented to move through it. But it's true. Like, we all struggle. We're all human. We have our moments. And like you said, it's going to put you in a better place. You realizing that continuously pushing and pushing for more wasn't actually benefiting you the way you needed it to has now allowed you to probably start becoming the person who is going to eventually step on the Olympia stage and is going to eventually place in a show, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that a lot of people too, and I'm bringing it back to social media, but I think a lot of people put just so much pressure on themselves when it comes to shows. And a lot of last year, I didn't even post when I was competing because, people ask how you did and you feel like you have to tell everybody. And, at these national level shows and even these local shows, I mean, the talent and the people that are showing up, I mean, everybody looks amazing. And it's just, when you tell someone, well, I got this, 16th place, but when you place 16th and everybody looks amazing stepping on stage, it's not so bad. But I just think that people put so much expectation in their minds, and then they feel like they're letting, their followers down, that they didn't get, first place or whatever it is. But this sport is very mentally challenging because it's a sport where 99% of the time you're not going to get first place, and you have to be okay with that. And that's a big thing too, is I think that social media plays a big role in it too. So I think having a good mindset when it comes to, whatever you choose to share with your audience, just knowing that, the people that follow you and the people that support you and the people that are your friends are going to love you no matter what placing that you get, and are going to support you either way. So
Yeah, exactly. And if anything, like, no matter what happens, like you said, it's serving some higher purpose, whether that's you winning or you having to push your show back or you pushing your show up or maybe stepping on a different stage than you expected. Like, all these things are happening for a reason. And I think if you go into it with that positive mindset and knowing that, it's an opportunity, that's something you like to do, it's going to help you to grow. It is going to be mentally challenging, but you're going to come out on top. Those are the things that are going to be great ways to motivate and support others if that is something you're excited about doing or passionate about doing.
yeah, exactly.
And a lot of this comes down to motivation as well. And one of our listeners wanted to know what keeps you motivated to achieve your goals. And I'm sure she wanted to know not just in competing, but in life as well. But I'd love to hear, like, what is it that drives you and motivates you?
Definitely helping others. That's been, outside of myself, helping others is what keeps me motivated. I love just, my clients and just the bond that I have with, my team, and us all kind of just inspiring each other on a day-to-day basis. I think that's really what keeps me motivated. I just love helping other people. Out of anything I've done in my life, this is easily the most fulfilling thing that I have. And, it's funny because I was talking to one of my girlfriends the other day, and I was like, I just love this job so much. Like, if someone said you cannot coach anymore, like, I would be devastated. Like, that's how I know I love it so much. And it makes me, like, emotional because I really I love helping people. And so that's easily my motivation every single day.
Yeah, it's obvious. I can tell. Even just the conviction you have when you say that and you share it, it's beautiful. And I love that about you. And I love that you're sharing that and you feel so open and excited about what you do. And the other day, well, actually, yeah, it was the other day, I was watching this video for a school assignment, and it was this woman, or actually it was this man giving counseling to this young woman, and she was like struggling with an eating disorder, specifically bulimia nervosa. And it was interesting because the client was super not interested in the session at all. Her mom brought her there. She's a teenager. And anyway, the question was posed at the end of it, like, does this make you not want to serve, like, this group anymore? Like, does this make you not passionate about it? And I was like, I didn't feel upset. I felt inspired and hopeful, and knowing that her life could change and that she could experience something completely different than the reality she's currently in is inspiring. And I think that that's probably similar to being a coach, not just for competitors, but lifestyle clients yourself, is you see what they can be, you see what they can do, and you're motivated by the potential in them, you know, getting what they really want or finding a new version of themselves that's more beneficial to their life. And it's exciting.
Yep, it really is. Absolutely. And not just because I would say 90% of my clients are actually lifestyle.
That's awesome.
And then 10% are competitors. But just because that's what I'm passionate about, because even though I compete, I kind of stay pretty much in shape, if you will, or to what I consider in shape for myself year round, because I make it a lifestyle. So I really like helping people, you know, go out and enjoy themselves on the weekend and, you know, have the things that they want, because none of my plans are the same for any of my clients, because you really have to adapt in order to stay consistent with something. You have to adapt to a lifestyle that works with your schedule. You know, I have flight attendants, I have nurses, I have people that have all different types of careers, and, you know, what works for someone isn't going to work for someone else. So you kind of have to really figure out. And I think that's the hard part too, is figuring out what works best for you. And that comes with patience and trial and error. But if someone has patience, I think that's the number one thing that a lot of people are lacking, is they just get bored with something. But consistency and patience are the two things that will get you to where you want to be when it comes to achieving your goals.
Yeah, and anything, right?
Mhm.
Man, I feel like bodybuilding has taught me so much about patience. Like, just fitness in general. It's like, oh my God, spin the block.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I mean, it's taken me like 4 years to learn patience. I'm like, Morgan, patience.
No, same. My coach had
Yeah,
to
and
drill
it's
that in
easy
my
to
head.
look at someone on social media, or even if you're talking to someone and think that they don't go through those things. But I definitely always wanted to be lean. I always wanted to just keep competing. And then I just started to just be more patient. Like, the stage will always be there, and you have to be mentally in a good place to do a prep. So,
Yes.
and you know when you are, like, kind of like how my personality is. I'm like, all right, I'm ready. Like, you know if you're in a good place or not. And I think that more people just need to try to be aware and be present and figure out when that time is for them.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. And so,
Mm-hmm.
you know, speaking of patience, it takes a lot of time for us to build muscle. And over the years, you've gained a lot of muscle. And specifically, you focused a lot of attention on your glutes. And one listener wanted to know what you did to grow your glutes, but still come into your show so tight.
Oh, so this is kind of funny, because you would think as a coach, like, you know, I have the perfect workouts or whatever. For my clients, I do. But for myself, I made a lot of progress because I realized that I wasn't training my glutes properly for me. I did a lot of like plyometric stuff. I didn't really lift heavy, for me personally. And so that was the biggest change for me. And this year, I actually have a trainer that trains my legs twice a week. So that's been the two biggest things. And coming in tight, I mean, that's just diet. But I think I actually came in a little more full than my last show, because that's kind of been my feedback, is that I need to come in fuller. So I focused a lot on switching up my training, lifting heavier, lifting more with intent, specifically doing hip thrusts and sumo deadlifts. Those have been the two exercises that have helped me tremendously, and I was not doing nearly enough of them. So that's the thing. Those are the two things that I've done.
I love those movements. Hip thrust for sure. And I love sumo deads. Whenever my coach puts them on my plan, I'm like, yes, let's
Yeah,
go.
like
Let's do it.
deadlifts, like I feel those way more in my glutes than hip thrusts. And those were a big staple for me. Like, my glutes kind of transformed when I put those in there. And then obviously the trainer that I have now, just the intensity. And I think that that's really helped me. I mean, even though I'm a coach, sometimes you need somebody to push you too.
For
And
sure.
that's been really good for me to have him helping me a couple times a week.
That's awesome. I love that. So, when you go in there, how long do you train?
It's usually about 45 minutes, I would say.
And you just like
But
focus on glutes and legs?
yeah, he only likes to train legs. So that's all we train together. But just, I don't like training legs. I love training upper body. So I knew that I needed to have someone help me in order to get where I needed to be. And it's funny because now that I've been so focused on my lower body, I need to focus way more on my upper body, because that's been more of my feedback, is that I'm too small up top. I need to get bigger. But again, it's a very subjective sport, and I think you just have to do the best you can and work on the areas that, you need to improve. But everybody has a different opinion, so it can be challenging sometimes. So
Definitely. So you said your feedback has been to come in fuller as well.
yes. So I've seen this a lot on Instagram, which I really like, but it's not really so much a shredded contest. And I was always very, very conditioned for my shows, but I needed to have more muscle so that you don't have to come in as lean in order to look lean and appear full on stage. So my last show was definitely the best showing that I think I've had. I looked really, really good for that show and kind of had a good balance. But when I get lean, I tend to lose size in my upper body, because when you diet down, you can't really control where you're losing body fat. So I'm working on building more muscle in my upper body so that I can come in fuller without having to get so lean in order to be stage ready.
Yes, and you've been going to shows with your clients. So have you noticed, because a lot of people are talking about how it's not a shredded competition. Yeah, I know for a while everyone was like trying to get and was super shredded. Like it seemed like everyone was just like focused on getting the leanest that they possibly could. And it doesn't seem like that's being rewarded as much or promoted as much. So I'm curious as to what you've noticed as a coach when you go to shows to watch and support your girls.
I think that it depends on the person. And then you can kind of go from there, because leanness varies on the individual, right? Depending on, where they're at muscle density wise and how they look already. But I think the national level is way different than the pro stage. I think there's definitely some inconsistencies there, but I think you just have to show up with the package that you like. Because me personally, chasing the judges' feedback really affected my mindset, because again, my last show, I had 3 different judges tell me something different. So it really depends on, it's a subjective sport. It depends who you're in front of. It depends who shows up that day. So I think it's hard, and bikini is such a hard sport in general, but it's also a hard sport to coach, because it's inconsistencies with the judging, and I don't think it's their fault. It's just somebody can come out not as lean as someone that may be more shredded and may have more lines, but the person that's not as lean, it might just look better on them, if that makes sense. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
So that person might be like, well, that girl isn't as lean as me, but it might just look better on her that she's not as lean. So that's why I say it really depends on the individual. And I think that that's why bikini is so hard. And I think that's why people jump coaches so much, because they're like, it's my coach's fault. I need to go to a different coach because this person did better with this coach. And I just think that people just need to really focus on their individual journey and realize that it's subjective, and you obviously want to take what the judges say into consideration. But I think in order to make it a lifetime sport and something you enjoy, I think you have to bring a package that you personally like and what you want to deliver on stage.
Yeah, something you're proud of and feel confident in. So when you do get out there, you're rocking it and even able to present it to your best of your ability.
Yeah, because it's hard sometimes if you don't like. I always, for example, this is something silly. It doesn't really have to do with physique wise, but my hair. I love my hair wavy, right? But my look is always straight hair on stage. Every time I go out with wavy hair, I don't do as well. And I just think it's because of a confidence thing. So like you're saying with your body, if you're not liking the looks, whether that's too lean or coming in a little bit softer, you're not gonna feel confident on stage, and it's gonna show in your personality and your presentation. So
Exactly. And that's what's interesting about sports that are judged, or, like something like gymnastics or this, for example, or dance or whatever. And as you know, cheer, um, like the energy that you bring can dramatically change the result that's created. So it's like you can't compare yourself to first place if, like, let's say you come in third and then someone else is
yeah,
first and you're like, well, it's such a small difference, or maybe it's a big difference, and you're like, they're not as lean as me or whatever, they don't seem to fit the criteria as much. But maybe what you didn't see is what the judges felt. And I think that that's sometimes hard to grasp, but it's important to understand that there's still that line that exists, that's just within human nature and what we like and what we're attracted to.
yep. And just another thing too is I just think being proud of yourself in general, because I just think we're so tied to numbers and placing. And this is a hard sport. There's not very many people that can commit to a show, make it all the way through, go through all of the, cardio sessions, the dieting. And if I can send a message out there, it would just be to be proud of yourself, because this is already hard. And when you get off stage, and it's okay to be disappointed, but just really remind yourself that what you've been through and what you've accomplished, and to be proud, because it's a very difficult sport, and a lot of people should be more positive when they get off the stage, even though in that moment. But that's when you need to really focus on being present and kind of remind yourself everything that you've been through to get to this moment, and that you should be
Yes.
proud of everything you've accomplished.
Love that. I love that. So true and so important. And there was one other thing I wanted to kind of address with you or get into, which is about Ghost, the supplement company you've been with for 3 years. And you don't always see athletes like sticking it out with the same company, or, exclusively using one company's product. So why did you choose them, and how did you land a sponsorship?
So, yes, I have been with Ghost for 3 years, and basically how I got started with them is they actually were living in Vegas at the time, the owners, and I was a big fan of Nikki Blackketter back in the day. I still am,
You
of
guys
course, but she
look
was like
so
the first.
similar.
I know, everyone says that, but she was with Ghost at the time, and I remember I went to an expo, or the Olympia Expo, because I was living in Vegas. And that's where I met her. She was with them at the time, and I got to talking to the owners, and I really just vibed with them. And I think it was about 4 months later, one of the owners, Ryan, had reached out to me, and he sent me a few products. And what I really like about Ghost is that they don't push products on anybody. I don't have any requirements to promote their products. They're not super salesy. It's just so genuine. And that's really what I liked about them. And I've been with them for 3 years, and it's just kind of, I don't use anything else. I genuinely really, really like their products. I use literally all of them, the aminos, the BCAAs, the pre-workout, the protein powder, the whole line I use. And I think it's great for not only competitors, but for lifestyle people as well. So they have definitely a good mix. And I just like their vibe overall, because they're a lifestyle based company. So they attract everybody when it comes to fitness, which I like.
And do you have a favorite supplement from them?
So right now, my two favorite protein powders are, obviously, because I love cookies, the Chips Ahoy one. And I'm not even a vegan person. You literally have tried several vegan proteins in the past, and all of their vegan flavors are amazing. I actually would put that one over the cookie one, the banana pancake flavor that just came out.
Oh.
That is off the charts. It's amazing. I mix it in like oatmeal or cream of wheat, and it's really good. So, and then their burn product is good. It's kind of like a fat burner, a powder. I use that in the morning, and then their aminos, I usually sip on that in my water throughout the day. As far as the flavors, I love the sour green apple in both the burn and the aminos.
Yum. Sour green
But
apple.
that's something that separates Ghost for sure, is their flavors. Their flavors are on point. Like, you can mix their protein with water and it tastes good. So
I feel like that's such an important thing, like for any company, any supplement company, like you never know what you might get. So it's nice when you can try it and it actually tastes good.
Yep, exactly.
So, I hope you don't mind me asking, but do you get paid for sales you make, or do you get paid like monthly to be an athlete, or do they just send you products, or how does that work sponsorship wise?
So they send me products, and they always have. And then I was commissioned for a while, so I had to sell a certain amount of products per month, and then I would get commission. And then now, as of this year, which I'm super excited about, but they did bring me on as salary. So I am salary with them now,
Nice.
plus commission. But I am just super modest when it comes to that stuff. I never want people to feel forced to use my code, or I'm not really just like a pushy person in general, but I generally do really like their products. So
That's awesome. Congrats, by the way.
thank you.
You're welcome. So, what do you recommend other girls do or be mindful of when it comes to sponsorships?
I think just really find a company that you really like, what they're representing and the products that they have. Because in order for it to come across genuine, and in order for, when people ask me about Ghost, obviously you can tell I really like their stuff. But, before Ghost, One Up had reached out to me, and I have nothing against them, but they were really pushy about what you have to do in order to be a part of their company. And for me, I just feel like if you really like something, it's going to show to your audience, and you want that to be genuine. So those are definitely the things that I looked for. And that's with any sponsorship in general. I just think you should really vibe with what the company represents, and obviously truly really like the products that you're promoting.
Awesome. I love that. And I could not agree with you more. I feel like it should just be obvious. Like you should be able to promote it without being paid for it. Like you should
Right.
want to like it that bad. So, we have covered so many topics. And like I said, I really appreciate you taking the time with me today. And I especially appreciate it now. I know we've gone like really deep into lots of different things, but it's been super expansive and informative. And I want to end the episode. I always like to know, like, what's your best advice for newbie competitors, and then what's your best advice for girls on their road to pro?
So for newly competitors, I would just say just to really enjoy the process. I loved when I first started competing, and just I always tell my clients this, I wish I could go back to when I first competed, because I had zero expectations. I just kind of soaked up every single part of my journey. And I think that sometimes people just get so ahead of themselves, and they're too busy comparing themselves. So if you're a first-time competitor, really just soak in every moment and truly enjoy the process, especially like your first show day and all that stuff. Like, I just loved how my mindset was back then, because I just didn't know what to expect. So I think, that can apply to everybody, but especially if you're first time competing, just don't be too hard on yourself, and really just try to enjoy the process.
Love that.
And then for somebody going pro or on their road to pro, I would say just have patience. And I've mentioned before several times in this podcast already, everything happens for a reason, and certain things will happen when they're supposed to. And to just ride it out and have patience, and just, if you truly love it, this is truly what you want for yourself, then it'll happen. And just stay on the path and keep yourself in a positive place, and you'll turn pro when the time is right.
Yes, that is awesome. And I really appreciate you shedding light on so many things with us today. Like I said, it's just been really awesome to connect with you and talk with you. And I want other people to be able to connect with you too. So can you let everybody know where they can find you, maybe online, or how they could work with you?
Yes. So my Instagram handle is Morgan Lindsey Fit. And then my YouTube is Morgan Lindsey Fit too. So it's pretty simple. You can pretty much find me anywhere. It's just Morgan Lindsey Fit.
Awesome. Cool. I'll make sure I include those in the show notes. So to everyone listening, that's going to be on www.celestial.fit/podcast. As always, if you're listening the day it comes out, Morgan's episode is going to be at the very top of that page. If you're listening, months or weeks down the road, all you have to do is go to the category section and you will see Morgan's name there, and you can listen to their episode and read all the notes and everything like that. So I appreciate all of you coming on and listening every week. I also appreciate the ratings, the reviews, and when you share it with a friend or when you post on your story, it goes so far for the athletes as well as for the show in general. So thank you guys for that. And with all of that being said, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you are listening to this episode